million just to form a front court log jam. I guess if Frontierland runs out of logs, they could just borrow the Magic front court. I mean, I guess we can go with that. So don't agree with that signing.
And we're gonna kind of do our 8 and 9s together here, Jason, because they're the same. I agreed with you completely on the Aminu signing. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, he's a good player, and I genuinely feel like the deal itself is actually pretty good. But when the heck is he gonna play, Jason? Are you just gonna not play Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon? I mean, that's completely crazy. And then, they have a bunch of other guys on that team who are going to be playing at the 3, so it just doesn't make any sense how he's going to fit in there. The other one that we already talked about earlier on one of our earlier podcasts was DeAndre Jordan to the Nets, where it just feels like 4 for 40 is a little bit much for a guy who can't do much besides rebound and dunk. The end of that contract is probably not going to look great for the Nets, Jason.
No, I know. I mean, it would have looked better if it was 3 with a team option. I believe you made that point on last week's show. We're going to try and get Anthony Puccio on soon and get his thoughts on the Jordan deal. The hope here is that he'll be reinvigorated by playing with Kenny Atkinson and just the motivation to finally win that championship. It didn't work out with Lob City and the Clippers. He ended up going to 2 rebuilding teams in the Mavericks and the Knicks. This is his last chance to contend for a championship. He's got all NBA accolades. He's got an all-star appearance. He's got an Olympic gold medal. Will he have enough left in the tank to help the Nets? Will he be okay in a bench role? That's why the money scares me, because if Jared Allen ends up being the better player, he's 21 years old. Will Jordan be at $10 million a year sulk on the bench? That worries me. So I think the beginning of that contract will be good, but similar to Jimmy Butler, I'm a little nervous for the end of it. But $10 million a year, it's not an unmovable contract, so Sean Marks could always trade him if need be. But, c'est la vie, as you say. My final person on this list is a guy you were pretty high on last week, and that's Ricky Rubio to the Suns. 3 years, $51 million. So he's getting $17 million a year from the Phoenix Suns when they already have a guard in Devin Booker who's very dominant. I don't know how Rubio fits on this team. Maybe for a little lesser money, I'd be more okay with this deal. But I thought $17 million a year for Rubio was just a bit too much for my liking, and that's why I put him at the end of my list.
Yeah, and the guy I have last year, it's just one of these moves where I've said it before and I'll say it again. It just didn't make any freaking sense to me, Jason. I mean, the Wizards don't have much flexibility. You can't really see what they're doing. And then they bring back Thomas Bryant on a 3-year deal for $25 million. Where does he fit in this team? Does he fit into their future? Probably not. Not a great player. $8 million feels like an awful lot. Probably could have had a deal for Willie Cauley-Stein, similar to what the Warriors did, for a fraction of that for a better player. Seems like a lot of money for a team that has big bills, paying John Wall's contract. And then, to me, just really the kicker was, Jason, they gave him 3 years. So you're going to be in a terrible cap situation. You're going to be in cap hell, so to speak, with what you've got. And now you're adding Thomas Bryant to it. Not sure that's the guy I'd want to pay in that situation. So not a fan of that one. But let's run through our 2 favorite teams. You're obviously a Nets fan. I'm a Bulls fan. Let's start with the Nets.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to report. The deals became official. Kevin Durant changed his number, so that was exciting. He put out this 4-page Instagram post explaining why he changed from 35 to 7. Nets fans are excited, man. They filled out the roster with some good signings. We mentioned Garrett Temple, Wilson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan, Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Taurean Prince. So they got some players in there. I'm excited with the way Brooklyn's offseason went. I'm going to give props to Sean Marks for what he did for a couple of outgoing players. Getting Damari Carroll more years and more money with the Spurs in exchange for a couple of European stashes, and then getting a 2020 protected first from the Warriors along with Kevin Durant in a sign and trade is an absolute coup. Because if the Warriors make the second round of the playoffs, the Nets get their first round pick. The only caveat here is if the Warriors pick 1 to 20 next year, the pick automatically turns into a 2025 second rounder. But when you acquire Kevin Durant in the deal, I really don't care where this pick falls, to be honest with you. But then before we started recording tonight, Sean Marks held a press conference at Las Vegas Summer League and said something pretty interesting. Kevin Durant underwent a full medical examination by the Nets team doctors, and Sean Marks not ruling out a return to the court next year for Kevin Durant. I know Martin O'Malley's the Nets orthopedist, and he performed Durant surgery, right when he got injured. But, I mean, Ben, do you really see a scenario where Durant suits up next year?
I do think he could come back in the playoffs. I would say this. If I'm Marks, I just don't see the upside of saying this. I would not have said a word.
Well,
It
he
only
didn't
puts
not
more
say it. He
pressure.
didn't say it. There's no pressure. He just said, "Listen, I'm not going to say he's playing, and I'm not going to say he's not playing." It's
Yeah.
very Sean Marks esque.
I would not say a word about Durant playing, and then if he plays, it's all gravy. But I do think he could come back in the playoffs, Jason.
But can you? So when has a player of Durant's caliber made his debut on a new team in the playoffs? I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened before.
That's a good
That
one.
would be
We're
a
gonna have to get
that
stats and
would be a
info. We're gonna
that would
hire
be a
ESPN.
first. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean that's really all I got on the Nets. I'm just excited. I've been telling guys like Christian, who was a guest of ours a while back. The Nets are playing with house money, so I'm excited to see what they do. And then I'm going all in 2 seasons from now, 2020, 2021. I have championship aspirations, but next year the hope is just to continue growing, have LeVert maybe take that next step, nobody get hurt, and then when Durant comes back, the Nets will be ready to roll.
And before we get to the Bulls, Jason, I just want to talk about something we talked about before the show, just to bring the people in on our weekly comedy that is the New York Knicks. Marcus Morris, power forward, is considering reneging on his deal with the Spurs to go to the Knicks. Jason, this would make what would it be now? Would it be 5 or 6 power forwards that the Knicks have signed? Let's see if we can go through them all. So we've got Julius Randle, who is nominally a power forward, will likely play some center for them at the expense of Mitchell Robinson. Then we have, make sure I don't forget anyone here, Jason. We have Taj Gibson, Bobby Portis, now him. Am I missing someone, Jason? I think I might be forgetting a guy or two.
So you got Randall, Gibson, Bobby Portis, potentially Marcus Morris, and then you have Robinson there who could play some four. They just basically in Madison Square Garden has become a power forward store.
And let's not forget, Jason, that they're two young promising players, R.J. Barrett and Kevin Knox, should probably play a little bit of small ball four on this team. Neither one's a good shooter, so you would expect them to actually play some four. Just Nick's gonna nick, Jason, and this was just another classic example of it.
Well, the one thing I'll give them credit for, though, is kind of hitting the pause button on the Reggie Bullock deal, which was going to be 2 years, $29 million, because the organization doesn't think he can play the entire season next year. So it looks like Bullock's still eager to become a Knick. And then if they lessen his deal, that would fit Marcus Morris in under the cap. But the focus here is more on Morris and why he would want to walk away from the Spurs situation there, because that's kind of a sign of disrespect. And you saw that with what happened 4 years ago with DeAndre Jordan in Dallas. It's just not right. When you verbally agree to a team who traded David Bertans in that deal to fit in DeMar Carroll for more years and less money, to fit Morris in under the cap for the exception, I think it was $9.3 million a year. You don't just go and renege on your deal with the Spurs. So I'm going to be watching that situation just to see how it progresses. And if he ends up on the Knicks, it's just going to be a joke. Like, I don't know where all these power forwards are going to play, but it's more about Morris and why he would do that to San Antonio.
Also,
Than
not
it is
exactly
about
the
the
best
Knicks.
mentor for young players. Didn't we just watch this with Boston, where
Yeah.
he sort of under the radar was a terrible teammate all year and didn't pass the ball? Like, is that really the guy, if you're the Knicks, you want to be mentoring your young players? I just,
Yeah. And
it's a
actually,
head
the
shaker.
Knicks actually are handling this the right way. I'm going to give them credit. They don't think Bullock is a, $14 million a year player, and they may be able to get two players, for that money. So, I mean, I'm giving the Knicks credit here. This is more a disappointment in a guy like Marcus Morris.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd really want Morris on the team, to be honest. But at any rate, let's get to some positivity here, Jason, because it's been a while, but I think it's time for a combination segment, Jason, because I'm doing my Ben's Bulls Bliss and my Hero of the Week, because they happen to both be the Chicago Bulls, Jason, who, you heard it here first, folks, are going to be competing for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference next year. And here's why. If you look at the Chicago roster from a year ago, one of the things that will stand out to you is the number of games missed across the roster. Zach LaVine missed nearly 20 games. Markkanen misses about 30 games. Otto Porter Jr. is only there for 15. Guys like Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker played for good chunks of the season and were, quite frankly, terrible. Chris Dunn missed almost 40 games. Wendell Carter missed almost 40 games. And the list goes on, but we'll just sort of stop there. This forced a lot of lesser players to play big roles, and obviously they kind of started tanking towards the end of the year. I think that alone is going to get them a pretty big improvement. They added to that by getting a few guys in free agency that I think will really help them win this year. Whether that's valuable or not is another story, but Satoransky coming from the Wizards feels like a really nice kind of veteran to play the point guard position, settle this team. Thaddeus Young is going to slot into the power forward, can play along really any of the bigs that the Bulls have. And then, Jason, my other kind of reasoning behind this is that if you look at the incumbent playoff teams who finished 7th and 8th, I predict that both the Magic and Pistons will fall out of the playoffs this year. We've talked about the Magic, but when you look at their signings, they just don't make any sense. This team is loading up on guys who play the forward and big man positions, and they just don't really have much in the backcourt now. DJ Augustine is slotted to be the starter again. They really don't have much behind him. They have guys like Markelle Fultz, who we just don't know what to expect from. And as a result, I think the spacing is going to be cramped. Nikola Vucevic had a career year. I look for him to regress to the mean, and I think without him, they're going to really struggle. I watched the Bulls play the Magic, and they actually won some of those games because I think when they're at full strength, their starters were actually pretty good on the Bulls. And now their bench is going to be dramatically improved. I think they're going from the worst bench in the NBA to probably one of the better benches in the league. And then the Pistons. And Jason, I'm not trying to rag on the Pistons here, but Blake Griffin played 75 games, Jason, and 35 minutes a game. I will just about guarantee that he does not hit those numbers next year. And as a result, with the loss of Reggie Bullock, with my projected loss of some of that time from Blake Griffin, I think they're going to really struggle. They had remarkable health for their top 3 guys offensively. Blake Griffin played 75 games, Drummond played 79, and Reggie Jackson played a perfect 82. I don't think that they repeat that. I don't think they've gotten better this offseason. They lost some of their depth. I predict both of those teams slip out of the playoffs and that the Bulls make a very convincing run for that 8th seed along with the Magic.
So here's the baseline jumper first. I'm going to counter that and make you my zero of the week because I think you're a year too early. Okay, this is nothing personal, Ben. You're a great guy, but you're going to take the L this week and be my zero because, I don't think the Bulls are ready. I think if we revisit this next summer, I think you'd have a point. But I think with Wendell Carter having the surgery and not playing in summer league, and then you get Thaddeus Young to start at the 4, where are the minutes for Markkanen? You can't bump Markkanen to the bench. You got Otto Porter there making a ton of money. So Thaddeus Young may have to, resign to a bench role. I think Kobe White's going to need a year in the NBA to develop. So if we're talking about the Atlanta Hawks, then yeah, I think they're fighting for the 8th seed, but the Bulls not quite ready yet. I think it's going to be another year for them.
So you heard it here first, folks. Jason says no playoffs. Ben says bet the house, bet the farm on the Bulls over for next season. I will be bullish on the Bulls next year, Jason. I think I'm excited for a Bulls season for the first time in a little while. And I'm excited to keep doing these podcasts, but I think it is time to let the people go, Jason. We've had another long one today as we kind of wrap up the off season. Any thoughts for the people before we let them go?
Well, just remember, we have merch, so go to blatantteamstore.com and search for Double G Sports. There's baseline jumper merch in there, so be sure to buy some cool stuff. I'm going to be placing an order within the next week or two. I might buy you an early Christmas present, Benjamin. And just remember, folks, we love feedback, positive, negative. We don't care. We want to keep this thing rolling, so remember to subscribe, rate, and review.
5 stars, please.
And thanks for rocking with us. I think the free agency frenzy has come to a close. Unless Russell Westbrook gets moved, we're not going to have too many more big deals to break down. But again, 6 hours of content in the last 3 weeks. I mean, aside from Woj, where else do you want to get your NBA fix other than with us here at Baseline Jumper?
You said it. And remember, folks,